to balance the housing, the commercial, the residents, the developers. There's a lot that goes into it. I don't discount what has happened up until this point. I really don't. I know that I appreciate there's been a lot of time, money, people, and time invested in this. So there's just little pockets that
But
need to be tweaked.
But if you get what you want, you'll be happy.
Well, of course, don't we all?
No. No, if I get what I want, generally I find out that really isn't what I want.
Well, and that's actually a disappointing perspective that I've heard before for University Place, when the residents were upset about those big buildings. The comment I heard from someone in the city was, residents generally don't know what's best for them.
I don't know who you heard that from in the city, I don't want to know.
That was pretty sad. And I was like, well, I know what I would like behind my house, and I hope that I know what's best for me and my family, but in the end, the city sometimes has that mentality like, well, the residents really don't know what's best for them, and we do, so we're gonna tell them what's best for them. And that's hard.
You know, I've never heard anybody that I've worked with in the city, and I've worked with public works and with just guys that are out there doing stuff, and then like Bill Winterton and Jason and Ryan and city attorneys, you know, all these people, I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah, those residents surely felt
So
that way too.
I'm a realtor.
Whether it was said directly to them by a person,
So
they really felt that. They were told
I
that.
have a very
The ones over in.
kind of a
Is
broad
that person
scope.
still working?
Yeah.
Did you cut your hair?
I don't know.
Well, I had someone else do it, but yes.
You know, the last time I asked someone that, it was my sister, and she said, yes, I did, because
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
and she actually did. She she did a great job. That's very cute.
I wish I could do that.
Yeah, I could
I
not.
was gonna ask you,
I would say that's the election, right? I don't know if that's 100%.
That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Okay. Because I don't have any.
Where is one?
What do you want?
Fair accused.
yeah, I was gonna ask my neighbors, your sign is already,
Oh, yeah. Great guy.
yeah, I like
We
that.
got your back.
So we'll try again. That's not bad for a first time.
Our first time? No, actually, amazing. For the first time, it's great.
I'm your Doug, so
Okay, I'll do this.
I was gonna say it looked different.
I will Doug for just a moment, and then if everything moves smoothly, I will go back to not being Doug.
This is sweet. Young lady right there.
Yes, she is our new Jake.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if I can say that either.
Always crossed the line.
I try not to.
Wednesday.
I just call it as I see it.
Rain.
Well, welcome, let's get this started.
yes.
Listen, you got 1 minute,
Oh, that's not right, okay. No.
technically.
Yeah. All right, we can begin with this. We have one item that we're going to be going over, as well as our minutes from the last, which we're from. You want to, are you going to do the presentation on this one, Jason? I like that. I was on the Uinta Basin yesterday, when that big storm hit. It's amazing how quickly the gullies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. So we got that. So,
Okay, you want to start, or should we wait?
yeah, let's start. No, we have 5 of us, 5 or 7, I think.
We only have 6 now with Carl gone, don't we?
Oh, yes, that's right. So we have 5 or 6. And we have the big one in here.
This is for Frank.
So who's
No,
the
no, I'm saying
deciding
Cheryl.
vote if we're tied?
It would go as a non-recommended item.
A tie is a loss and a negative recommendation.
Okay, so Carl and So today we're gonna talk about some additional requirements that the council wants us to consider on State Street. We're now looking at, there's one in the North Village, which we'll talk about, basically Canyon Crossing, City Center District, Arts District, and the Hub District. We're looking at putting a cap on height, looking at setbacks, and we're looking at some other parking modifications. So I'm just gonna go through each of those, and we can have a discussion if you want to. So they're broken out into different districts, although the districts themselves are kind of the same ordinance, just different sections. So when we talk about the city center district, the same text, you'll see that it'll be similar in other districts as well. What the council's asked us to do is put a height limit in all the districts. We'll have a discussion next Tuesday with the council to determine whether or not we want to put a height limit on all the districts. This ordinance tonight proposes that, and would put, if the council, whether you make a positive or negative recommendation, it will still go to the council as a pending legislation. And they can modify, you can recommend whatever differences you want in this text as well, and send that recommendation to the council. So in the first line, or the first red portion, it basically just puts the maximum cap of 60 feet. Typically, right now in most commercial zones, at least in Orem City, there is a secondary height cap that does within 50% of the roof, where you see penthouse, surrounded for the chillers and all those types of things that are non-habitable spaces. We allow another 10 feet. In the C2 zone, we allow 15 feet. In the highway services zone, I believe it's 15 feet as well. We've dropped it to 10 feet maximum, so they can have an overall height of 70 feet. But that 70-foot area, that 10 foot would be less than 50% of the top of the roof, and would be non-habitable. So the maximum height of the top of the roof that would be habitable is 60 feet. Any questions on that? In the setback, so we do have some areas in the district that abut directly onto a residential zone. And also the Res B is a residential zone, which requires attached twin home type developments with a maximum height of 35 feet. Those are included as well. If you recall, in the North Village District, we have a 75-foot setback, 35-foot height maximum. That standard will be now applied through all the districts when it abuts directly either a Res B or a residential zone.
Just a point on that, when you say that within the 75 feet setback, the highest that it can be is 35 feet.
Why did they take out the width of the adjacent public right-of-way?
I think it's not applicable in this. I have to talk to Steve on why we took that out.
So I think later on it's kept, so it might just be not applicable for this zone, but you'd keep that for the other.
I'll have to talk to Steve.
Okay.
And then the parking below it, changing it from 3 parking stalls per 1,000 square feet to 4 stalls, which is what is currently in the C2 zone. The parking study that we had done about a year, maybe 2 years now, recommended that we had too much parking in the commercial, which is why we dropped it to 3. We haven't gotten to the point of changing it. Now we want to change it back to 4 per 1,000. And then the recommendation in the Hub District, which is, the North Village District is 2.25 for anything over the residential units. We had a mix of council members that wanted 2.25, some wanted 2. We're going to have it at 2. Planning Commission could make a recommendation of 2.25 if you choose to. The council could also make that recommendation or propose that. We put it at 2 just to have that as part of the discussion and amendment. The council and the other districts can keep it at 2, or they can change it to 2.25, like the North Village District has.
Oh, sorry, another question. So if there's a structure within 75 feet of a residential zone, can part of that structure be 35 feet, and then once it's out of that 75-foot setback, it can bump up to 60? Okay, so it doesn't have to be a separate building.
Whatever the maximum height limit is after that 75 feet, as long as it's equal to the height. Just, so there's still another requirement within that it has to be at least equal to the height as well. So 60 feet would have to be at least 60 feet back, but it's in the 75-foot section, so it would have to be 75 feet back. I mean, technically you could have a 35 and then all the way up to 75, but I don't know if that would be practical. So that is the city center district. The hub district is the same. We're doing them. It's the same section, only different section. Still going to be 60 feet. Still allow us 70 feet.
Question, Jason?
Yeah.
Can we go back to that previous? So it says building height, all building shall be minimum of 3 stories. I had a developer voice concern, like if you wanted to get a bank or a restaurant or retail, and they don't want to go 3 stories, what could they do?
So that is the ordinance. That is a discussion item that we'll have with the council on the 24th, next Tuesday. So we have 5 additional amendments that we're looking at, considering and wanting their input, and that is one of them, whether we just take that out altogether. So that's an option that would be on the table. It would be an ordinance and that would come back through the process.
Okay.
The idea behind that was to try to consolidate and get larger structures in the districts, consolidate the retail.
Yeah, his concern was that it eliminated his ability to get banks to build.
If they're out just for one story, then yeah.
Yeah, then,
Alpine down there.
you know, Alpine had to comply, but if the bank
They
doesn't
didn't,
want to
actually,
comply.
they built it without being in the district.
That's great.
Is there something special about banks that they don't want multiple stories? No.
No,
No,
nothing
I-
special, it's just the option, just like when
Right.
they had my property on State Street, it was gonna be legal non-conforming, which made me angry. And the city was able to recover and fix it. If I own a property on State Street, I don't wanna build a 1 story, I don't want anybody to tell me not to build a 1 story.
Yeah, that's a discussion we'll have with the council on Tuesday. That is one of the items that we'll, we would want to just take that out altogether and just allow them to do whatever they want. As far as 1 story or higher, that'll be a discussion.
The 3 stories does provide a nice, that concept of aspect of refuge that people like to feel like there's something big at their back, but be able to see a distance in front of them. So with those super wide roads, taller buildings create a better feeling when you're on,
I think it makes it crowded.
which lowers speeds. And there's an argument for good congestion in places where there's lots of economic activity. People want to be there making transactions, having events. If that's the kind of crowded that it is, then
So,
There's argument for either way.
so
So you can argue all night,
So the hub, which is obviously University Parkway and State, that's the one we have the 3-story, because we obviously think that that's gonna be the bigger. You see the mall building taller stories, that's what we want to have, those being the larger structures. This district, the city center district also has that similar requirement. As you get to the North Village, it was only the very corners, so the quick whack, and that corner, the rest of them were all 1-story. The new, pizza shop that was just built there, that was a 1-story, because that was within the 1-story. So the question, I guess, that we'll have with the council is, do we just want to eliminate that as an option? Just have 1-story, let the developer or the market drive the height.
so currently just the hub and city center have that 3-story requirement.
Right.
Okay.
Some areas that within like this district and not, well, only has the 1. Some edge districts have 2-story requirements and then they feather out to 1.
Okay, thank you.
Again, the idea was to get it more consolidated, so you can go to one location, if you like, and you driving, and then. It is changed, so that's why we're coming back. Setbacks is very similar to what we had before, 4 per 1,000 with 2 stalls. Canyon crossing, and so this is just kind of repeating itself. Different districts, but same standards.
Sorry, I have another question. I tried to look up the typical 5/1 building height, and the one place I saw said 65 feet is the kind of average for that 6-story, 1st-story retail, 5 stories of residential. Did that sound about right, 65 feet?
It's
as
probably
opposed-
about right.
Would 60 be squeezing it?
So they'd have to lose a story, most likely.
Okay, but 65 would be comfortable for that 5/1, like
is it. So this will be what will be presented tonight. We'll talk about it at the council meeting on Tuesday, and then also have multiple other discussions, the height, minimum heights, things like that will be discussed as well. So they'll most likely be coming back with some other discussions as we work through with the council on modifications to some districts. So, any questions about that?
I'll just bring this up since our illustrious chairperson had to represent our motives for voting the way we did last time at the city council meeting. I think, even in some of our meetings where there've been some of our more contentious, meetings with lots of input, there's been a lot of complaints about traffic, and especially, on 4th West and 1600 North, but maybe I should put this on a poster and say change my mind, but it seems like increasing the number of parking spaces per square foot and, things like that, requirements, seems like, to me, it seems like that might discourage walkable developments and might not be good for our traffic problems.
There have been studies done that have said that if you increase the parking, especially when we were discussing that project, that increasing the amount of parking increases the number of cars that people are, these are luxury, those are luxury condos and townhouses. And that means it's very likely that they will have then 3 cars instead of just 1 or 2. So that is a very real thing.
Also, when you include parking in the cost of rent, people are more likely to park because they don't see the direct cost and they don't pay for it separately. And the city code in the parking section states that the goal is to have the minimum requirement, I haven't heard that, but it's to decrease the dehumanizing aspect of parking lots, which I find rather accurate.
Can you explain a little bit more?
So if you have, sometimes my family and I walk to Savers. The kids get a cheap toy, we love it, but we get to cross 200 meters, okay, that's an exaggeration, 100 meters of very hot parking lot where there are lots of cars moving around. Granted, they're all going at slow speed, so that's okay, but I'm with these little kids. Even if when I'm by myself, it creates a lot of conflict. Cars are great, but they don't share the road very well because the average car is 1.5 tons, 2 tons now that we're getting more trucks and SUVs, and the average person weighs a lot less than that. So it's dehumanizing because it's this big desert of asphalt, basically. That's how I see it. I don't know. Maybe somebody
Could the increased
likes
traffic
parking lots.
help with that too? Like a lot of traffic issues. So I'm trying, dehumanizing, I'm only trying to understand. Okay? I'm only trying to, because, I lived in New York for a long period of time. Lots of people with family and kids across much busier road than we have here, much faster.
Did you like it?
I loved it.
Crossing the road?
We're different. We're obviously very different based on our email exchange. We're very different. I don't want to get the decision impacted by the emotion of dehumanizing. I'd like to understand it more, so maybe I will not and have an opinion on it at the moment. But I'd love to understand a little more. So I'll dig into that.
Okay. Also, and don't tell me if this is wrong, but looking at the 4 parking stalls per 1,000 square feet, it ends up taking, according to the size of an actual parking stall, the space of the parking stalls ends up being about 600 square feet per 1,000 square feet of building space. But when you add in the parking lane, it goes to 1,008, just over 1,000 square feet of parking per 1,000 square feet of building space. Does that sound correct? No.
No.
Does that sound correct? Do you want me to pull up the numbers?
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Cause a 9x16 parking stall would be,
62 square feet.
yeah, multiplied by 4. And then
That's
if you,
500 spaces.
648, and then by the time you take.
then if you add, if you have to add additional drives
Six
lane to
times
accommodate
18.
additional parking stalls, that number of parking stalls, and it's gonna be, drive lanes are about 20 feet, that'd be 20 by 9,
24.
another 880 feet or so. So for about 820 square feet, you look at that way.
I have my numbers here, but yeah, so we're,
Ballpark.
if we did the four, yeah, ballpark, if we did the four, it would be about, we're requiring about the same amount of parking as we do, the people do building space.
But just as
I'm
an
not
example,
so far off on that, right?
if you take Kmart, for example, in about 2000, the city changed, it used to be a 5 stall per 1,000 square foot requirement. They changed it around 2000 to 4 per 1,000. At the time, Kmart was parked at 5 per 1,000. They were able to come in and put the KFC and some other pad sites out front. But you can see when Kmart was still in operation, it was way overparked. So 4 per 1,000 still is a moderate to high standard. You still have a lot more parking, except maybe after Thanksgiving and some other holidays or whatever. So the 3 per 1,000, based on the parking study that we had, was a more reasonable, lowers the standard and maybe have less asphalt, but still have a comparable amount of stalls that would be for the commercial. Now, when you add in the mixed use component, that may be a little different. But as far as a standalone retailer, whether you do Smith's or we do others, 4 per 1,000 is pretty good.
Jason, what's Target? Let's compare a successful retail, not Kmart
Target's
who went
4.
out. So what's Target's ratio, do you know?
It's probably around 4 per 1,000, it might be a little higher.
With the new corner bakery and everything added.
I can't hear you.
With corner bakery and the Taco Bell all added, they're still at 4 per 1,000.
I believe so, yeah.
Target is.
Those are all pads that we
Yeah.
approved.
I was there Saturday, couldn't find a parking spot.
You couldn't find a parking spot?
Getting my
You
kid
can't.
to college, it was a busy, it's especially busy weekend for some of the
There was
stores.
absolutely no parking.
I had to park by Corner's Bakery.
That's part of Target. So just because you have more parking doesn't mean you're gonna have parking next to where you wanna go. You still may have to walk to get there, so.
Oh, I thought I was parking in Corner Bakery's location, but they share parking.
Do they still have all the storage units out on the,
Oh, I didn't know
East
that.
side?
I think they did.
because that lot's usually.
That's required as well, so that is parking that they're utilizing for this. I mean, you know, we can have that discussion. 4 per 1,000 just gives them a little extra.
What's the reason for the council to increase it from 3 to 4? What's the logic behind it, do you know?
I think just to add more safety to the number of stalls available, right? So you don't have people parking in neighborhoods, parking on other people's property. So it just gives you that extra, it depends on how you look at things. Could be extra, could be.
And it depends also
Right.
on the use, when we, down at 900 South and State, when I had my lost property there was a call center. Now they moved, thank goodness they moved, because they had way too many people, way too many cars that really actually parked in my property. And that was a problem, but once that use changed to something else, it was not the same problem.
Yeah, call centers generate the highest, they're usually 8 per 1,000, so they
Oh.
require up to 12.
Seriously. That makes sense, that makes total
Because they
sense.
pack them into 50-foot cubicles,
Yeah,
usually 50
it
square
was
foot
awful.
cubicles.
I couldn't get.
Parking is based on zone, not by typical use. So we have a few exceptions, restaurants and things. Typically, a call center could go into a C2 zone, but it's going to be parked at 4 per 1,000. So in those instances, that may not be enough parking. But for a typical retail or a typical shopping center, 4 per 1,000 is good. It just depends. I mean, some, like the Hobby Lobby Center, I think they're parked at maybe 4.5,
Yeah.
5, because some retailers want more, even though they may not use it all, they just want the ability to have that extra parking.
Now, do we give flexibility to developers to come in and add, like, the KFC and Corner's Bakery and Zaxby? If we see that the parking is overkill, we give them to come, the flexibility to come and build other businesses that can share the same parking?
Well, we'd have to change the ordinance to do that.
We still have to do the gym program.
Well, they can apply for
Or
a
they can
parking
apply.
reduction,
There's a
right?
parking modification, good example would be In and Out. When they came in, the council did at the time, I think it was a 6% reduction in the parking requirement. So there is the ability to do that without changing the entire city.
Okay,
There is that.
so there's a way for them to
if you meet certain criteria, like I think you have to show that you're,
There's a bus stop, and
yeah,
there's some other.
have mass
Oh, bus
transit,
stop.
people, I mean, things that would naturally reduce your demand for parking, like mass transit or things like that.
Okay, which we,
So we
Yeah,
have that
MTA.
on occasion. I mean, actually, they've come back twice, I think, a slightly different modification as well. That specific shopping center. We did, before my time, so 20 years ago, they put in a cap, so 125% is the maximum stalls. So if you get a developer that wants 6 per thousand, we would cap them at 125%. So we don't have, season asphalt, it's not really needed. So the ordinance was changed to, well, like I say, before my time, to cap it at 125%. So if somebody wanted to go over and above the 4 per thousand, they could, but they could only go up to 25% of that requirement.
thank you.
Again, just to reiterate, we're going to have a big discussion, and probably multiple discussions with the council as we go over the next few months to talk about the different issues, talk about other changes, and probably do some rezones and different things as we move forward. So this is not the only time we're going to be here, so there will be other times for discussion. The council will have obviously good discussion, hopefully give us some direction, and hopefully we can come back to the planning commission maybe as a discussion item here and discuss it, and not really just throw ordinances, be able to have some discussion with you as well, so, as we move forward. We have a 6-month moratorium on the State Street districts that allows us now time to look at it without worrying about a developer coming in. They're proposing something that was what they're wanting to maybe moderate. So we do have some time, and we're trying to get it obviously as quick as we can, but knowing that there needs to be time to look at it as well.
So we're not separating these out, we're looking for one recommendation for all of the items.
So you could, if there's a district or whatever, because they're all broken out by districts, if there's one that you would prefer not to, or you want to change it, you're welcome to make that recommendation. So it would just be in your motion what you would want. Anything else?
Can I say one thing? So I mentioned it to Mickey earlier, but the height where it's, I'm talking about where it abuts residential, when we look at all the different districts, Northville's district and Arts district had already been taken care of. Those are not in the recommendation today, there's just the 3 remaining.
Right.
And there may be very small, isolated, single pockets where that would apply, because in most cases, there's a street or a right-of-way before the boundary of the district between the house. So even in that height one specifically, or even in the setback one, the 75-foot setback one, there may not be very many cases in the other 3 districts where that would apply. It would be very isolated.
Right.
So it sounds like it's just a widespread, blanket ordinance change, but it would only apply where a home touches directly the property of the district.
Where the zone, right.
Yeah, for that.
So whether it's home or whether it's fourplex or whatever.
Right, a residential zone. True.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just pointing out that that's not gonna happen like in Northville's district, it's almost entirely around the whole perimeter of it. But that does not exist in the hub I don't know if there's even one at all in the hub, there may
I don't
be.
think there is one.
There's and even Canyon Crossing, I don't think there is one.
There's a couple actually.
And then there is a very, over by Target, there's a street behind Target before you hit those houses.
There is some over behind the post office and things.
That's true, there are some.
There are some areas.
And they're usually mid-density, they're different ones too, but anyway, they're residential as well. But anyway, I'm just pointing out, there's just small pockets, it's not a widespread change like it is in North Village. That's an unusual district that way.
Okay.
Have we introduced our new staff yet?
Oh, I don't think I have.
Do you want to do that?
Yes. Rachel Stevens, I guess, is our new associate planner. She took over Jake's job. We've forgotten about Jake, now it's Rachel.
Jake who?
Yeah, that's right. So Rachel Stevens and then, Ellie, what's your last name?
Agnew.
Ellie Agnew. She's our new intern as well. She does all the work. Glad to have Ellie as well.
So you probably also don't know Aaron McKnight, he's one of the attorneys in our office, he's been a prosecutor for the last several years, and he just now switched over to the civil side of things, and he's trying to get involved in some of the planning stuff, and so.
You say civil side, but
Non-criminal. Yes, sorry.
I was
could be
on the right
taken the
side.
wrong way.
Good. Who was a prosecutor, so don't trouble.
Like I say, usually when I have people work, it's not good.
One is the
No,
It's the,
So I do have one other announcement for the planning commissioners, if you guys are interested. So the APA, the American Planning Association State Conference is coming up
Was it next for us?
on the 9th and 10th.
What, sorry, we couldn't hear you.
Thursday, Friday in September, first weekend in September, maybe second.
September 9th and 10th.
There will be a state planning conference. If you guys are interested in going, there's 2 full days. They have different classes on different planning things. If you're wanting to go, let me know, and I can register you for that conference. You're welcome to go both days, one day. If you want to go one day, let me know, we'll register for the one day. There's different packets that we can do both days or one day, so you're welcome to do any and all. Just please let me know. If there are 3 or more that wants to go, it's cheaper, but that's not the issue. So let me know what you want to do, and I'll be glad to. There's a lot of training. The new state law that just came out this last year requires planning commissioners to be trained, I think, 2 hours minimum, I think. So if you want Steve to do 2 hours, or you want to go to a conference,
Actually, it's rather 4 hours.
actually might be 4 actually.
Yeah.
So this conference is an all-day thing, and it does give you a lot of opportunity, and we can count that as training.
Councilman Peterson, you're invited as well if you're interested. It's up at the Taylorsville, Utah, New Mid-Valley Performing Arts Center. If you go to apautah.org, you can see the classes that are offered, and if it interests you, let us
So
know.
we'll send you a link to that.
Okay.
Cheryl. But don't register, let me know and we'll register for you.
I'm in. I went last year.
Okay?
We probably better run, right?
Test, nope.
Testing.
Okay? I'll do that. We'd like to see, are we on? Testing.
Testing, testing. No, we're not getting sound. Enough sound.
That. Where? Can you hear? No. We're up. All right, it's past the appointed hour. We're going to begin this meeting. We invite everybody to sit down and pay attention. No, not happening. What's this back sound that we have? Where's the sound coming from? We are. All right, we'll begin with an invocation. Councilman Peterson, if we could, please. We've asked everybody. We've officially begun the meeting. Would you like to do invocation? We'll ask Commissioner Spencer if he would offer the invocation.
Our kind Father in heaven, we're thankful to be gathered here today. Thankful for the many blessings Thou hast given us. We're thankful for the chance we have of steering Orem in good direction so that this will continue to be a good place to live. Bless us as we deliberate. Please bless Orem in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We got the screens up. Are the screens?
Not yet.
I guess our screens aren't up here, so. Okay.
There we go.
It's a conspiracy. Oh. Creepy. In fact, there's also creepy. Yeah. This is our day. Well, while we're waiting, we could ask people, how many acre-feet of water does Lake Powell hold?
Less than it used to.
No, it's still designed to hold the same amount. There. Presently, it's a little under 8 million acre-feet. Its capacity is 25 million. There we go. Thank you. Thanks.
Are you ready, Mickey? Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry for that. So tonight we will present some amendments to the State Street districts. As you recall, the Planning Commission has reviewed other amendments that went to the council. Last Monday, the City Council, a week ago Monday. You turned up a little bit, Grant. How's that? So a week ago Monday, the City Council did pass a moratorium within the districts themselves to preclude any development for the next 6 months within those districts, and asked us to bring an application forward that would modify some of the standards within each of the districts, including a modification to the North Village that was just completed, and then each of the districts, the Canyon Crossing, the City Center District, the Arts District, and then the Hub District, which is down on University Parkway. So there's many sections that I'll just go quickly through them. I'm not going to read that section. Basically, the first requirement, and we'll talk specifically about the city center at this time, but each of the districts related to parking is the same section, same proposed amendment. Right now, there's no limit on the height. And so the city City Council has requested us to come with an amendment to change that to a 60-foot maximum height to the top of the structure, meaning the roof deck. In other commercial zones, we do allow for additional square footage on the top that's non-habitable to be able to house off or, close off or whatever the chillers, the air conditioners, those types of things that would normally be on the roof, to allow them to not be part of the overall height, but 50% of the roof structure could be those that it's found typically on office buildings throughout the valley and throughout the country and probably the world for that matter. But we do allow an additional 10 feet to do that, as long as it's 50% of the overall square footage of the roof itself and not be designed for any habitable space. So that's our proposal for that, and this is consistent throughout the 4 districts. This amendment has already been done in the North Village District at a 48-35 cap that was done at the council a few weeks ago. In the residential setback that we talked in the pre-meeting about, this is when it abuts a specific residential property, or the Res B, which some districts have Res B, which is typically, if you're the city center, this street over here, those homes over there is designed to be redeveloped in the future as a residential B zone, which allows for a little higher density, but the maximum height is still 35 feet. So you can get a few more units on there, but nothing high density. This would require anything related to commercial or mixed use to be set back from a residential zone, a minimum of 75 feet with a maximum height of 35 feet. So within that 75-foot setback from the residential zone, the maximum height of any structure would be 35 feet. Again, any height of that structure, if it's 35-foot height, it would have to be, again, another setback of 35 feet off of the property line. So there's 2 different setbacks that we're dealing with within. So both of them will still remain. This is the new one, but the equal to the height setback is still part of the ordinance and will still remain as part of the ordinance. Under the parking section, we will change, we're proposing to change from 3 parking stalls for commercial, retail, office, those types of things, which now is a 3 per 1,000 requirement. It will change to 4 per 1,000. And then, like the North Village District, it would change from the 1.75 to 2.25. The council asked to change that. We have a couple of council members that asked for 2, some asked for 2.5. We're going to go to the 2. It still allows the planning commission to recommend something different, and it also allows the city council to change it to 2.25 if they're so inclined. We just had this as a holding, so if one can, convince the other that 2 is sufficient, then 2 is fine. If they want to go to 2.25, they can. One of the arguments with the North Village District was that was a unique district, a lot closer to residential than the other districts. So in our mind, 2 is probably reasonable, but 2.25 is also most likely an acceptable standard. But it is each of the districts south of North Village is a little bit unique in that there's a lot more commercial, a little larger district as well. The hub district, again, I'll just go through these. It's the same standard we just talked about in the city center district. I have all these in there, so the same standards are applicable. Canyon Crossing, and then the only thing that we've had that's different is in the North Village. Right now, it's still 3 per 1,000. We're proposing that to be changed to 4 per 1,000, as was pointed out by Ms. Visna, that they in the North Village and the Arts District, the residential setback standards has already been amended by the council, so that's why it's only shown in the other 3 districts. Those have already been applicable or already been approved. So anyway, I'm not going to read through this. I'll make one of you read all that when you make the motion, but we're requesting that this be forwarded to the city council. We are going to have a discussion with the council on the 24th, next Tuesday, to talk about not only this, but other issues that may be on their minds as far as the maximum height or the minimum heights and different things like that. So we will be discussing other things as well that most likely will come back as a discussion or an ordinance amendment to the Planning Commission in a future date. So be glad to address any questions.
Back to the commission.
I have a setback question. Sometimes you have houses right up next to one of these districts. And sometimes there's a street. Where's the edge of the zone?
So most likely the street itself is zoned to the district. So the
street belongs to the district, probably.
Right.
So the setback, well, but you can't build in the street anyway, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So depending on the district, the setback would be taken from the opposite side of the district zone.
Anything else from the commission? Doesn't look like it. This is a public hearing, so we will open it up to the public. If you have a comment that you would like to make, please step to the podium here, state your name, and, pardon? And address, yeah. State your name, address, and we'll count 3 minutes. That's what you have. So it's now open for public comments. All right, as there's no movement, we close the public hearing portion of this meeting. We'll turn it back to the commission for any additional comments and a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation to the City Council to amend portions of sections 22-24-1F1, 22-24-2F1, 22-24-3F1, and 22-24-4F1 pertaining to overall height standards in the State Street District zones. Portions of sections 22-24-1F, 2C, 22-24-2F2C, and 22-24-3F2C pertaining to setbacks from residential zones within the State Street District zones. And sections 22-24-1H1B, 22-24-2H1B, and 22-24-3H1B, 22-24-4H1B, and 22-24-5H1B pertaining to parking standards in the State Street District zones.
I'll second.
Thanks. Hasten. There was just a recommendation, okay?
Well,
And Mr.
so essentially, I think it was a positive recommendation because he was recommending that the council
Recommend that the
enact
Council
these amendments.
amend these. Yes, it's a positive recommendation.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's now to the council. Hasten, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Barry?
Nay.
Nay?
Aye.
Nay.
We have 3-3. The
The 3 or 4?
3-3. Where's the fourth?
4. 4-2.
No, we had
Do it again.
said nay. Nate? Then,
Oh, okay.
okay.
So that motion failed.
Yeah.
So there's obviously no recommendation being made on that motion. So an alternate motion, it would be appropriate to make an alternate motion if anybody wants to make a different motion.
How to make the motion?
No, I think it's clear.
That we,
I think it's clear the way it is. It's 2-4.
it is, but we could do an alternate.
Well, I guess what I'm
At the-
suggesting is that there may be some or planning commission members who are in favor of some of the amendments, but maybe not all. And so somebody might make possibly a motion. I mean, usually what happens is if a motion fails 2-4, then a counter motion is typically made, and that would be for a negative recommendation, if that's the way the planning commission members feel.
If I can maybe ask a question, if there's some clarification of the reasons why voting nay, I'm just,
Yeah, there are 3 things here, right? There's height,
Yes.
setbacks, and parking.
Parking.
You want to break it out?
Yeah, I think the breakout, if we could, it would be a rather complicated motion, and I'm not certain exactly how one would make that motion without being able to sit down and clearly write it out for clarification purposes. And being that we have not had any meetings or any discussions about each of these items individually, talked about the overall blanket.
if,
So recommendation,
can I ask a question real quick?
yeah.
So
if it's continued, does it vest from being into the planning commission?
Yeah, it's vested no matter what action the planning
So
commission.
if the planning commission wants further discussion, we could continue it for 2 weeks, come back and maybe have a little better discussion. I mean, there's no rush in this
Yeah, you
going
could do
forward.
that.
Yeah, you got 6 months.
We can still talk to the city council, we can,
Well,
no, it's good.
if the city council could be, perhaps provide a little bit more clarification as to what they're looking for, but this, just the blank
Hey,
part of it, I think may create more confusion than.
I think we've taken a vote. It was clear 4-2.
Yeah.
But therefore, we'll leave it up to the council to tell us if they want us to be more deliberate about it or not.
Well, it wouldn't, I mean, the council can make a decision without a recommendation.
They can.
Yeah.
Right, they,
So it wouldn't necessarily be remanded back. I guess my question is if we want to spend more time in the pre-meeting discussing the sections that may have some issues with members of the commission.
I
Is it
believe
60 feet? Is it the residential setback? I mean, those types of things may be helpful as we move forward in the discussion with the council.
I thought that the discussion that we had as far as the 75 feet in North Village and 75 feet in the hub was quite appropriate. So that wasn't an issue as far as that setback, I think.
In
For any,
addition, we have a moratorium.
we do.
I think the sooner we give it to the council, we don't want to drag it forever. We want to have business owners start putting applications.
Well, business owners have been told about the moratorium already, and some of them were in the process of getting their applications ready. And now those that have purchased development property along State Street are not very happy.
Well, and the council will reconsider the moratorium, portions of the moratorium on the 24th of whether to, take out some of those
Yep.
issues that as far as redevelopment, not redevelopment, but I mean remodeling, things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know that the moratorium itself is an issue as far as a rush. I'd rather get it right and
Yeah.
take it with a recommendation than,
So the numbers that came in for us to look at here, these came from the council?
yes.
Okay. Then they know that,
Yeah, let the council.
No,
Public hearing is closed.
What, Jason?
do we have to have a motion or just go forward without a
Well,
recommendation?
like I said, if it's impossible, I mean, usually if you've got like a 3-3 vote and you know that neither motion can pass, either for or against, then you kind of let it go with no recommendation. I mean, it's up to you. If you don't want to do a motion to, an alternate motion, let's say, I guess that's up to you, but.
I honestly feel like if the city council was gonna listen to us, they would have last time, so it doesn't matter what our vote is on this.
I think it does matter. It brings up attention to details, but we,
Yeah, I think it's the.
But I guess
yeah.
what I'm maybe your stance, at least 4 members of the planning commission is clear, but to make it formal, I guess maybe it would be helpful for somebody to make a motion, a negative recommendation that the council not adopt these changes.
I think this seems to be directive, like you want us to make a negative motion.
If you would like me to make a negative motion, then I will make the negative motion.
I'm just saying because a motion to pass these amendments failed 4-2, then like I said, typically the next step would be somebody else make a motion that might have a chance of passing.
All right, I'll make the motion.
One second. But does that make any difference on record of what kind of motion goes through?
Well, under state law, the planning commission is supposed to make a recommendation to the city council of any land use ordinance changes. And so right now, you're not making any recommendation.
Failed recommend, okay.
Okay, so that's why I'm saying either positive or negative, that's statutorily what you're supposed to do, is to make a recommendation. Again, if it's a 3-3 split, then there's no way you can, obviously.
A failed positive does not count?
What's that?
A failed positive does not count. It has to be a positive.
Right,
Right.
it's gotta be, because that's a motion that failed, so it needs to be a motion that passes.
Can
I think I can.
So no failed positive, let's make it positive negative. All right, sounds good.
Yeah,
It's the same,
I
it
think-
fixes.
right.
but I'm going to tell you what I'm trying to do just to make sure that I've noted the correct sections. I'd like to make them, this is what I'm trying to do. I want those residential areas directly abutting, or the zones directly abutting residential areas to have a maximum height limit of 65 feet, and that's it.
And what, how are you defining areas directly abutting residential?
Is that hub?
CCD Res A and CCD Res
B?
B, just in the CCD and not in the hub district. Sorry. Right, not in the F.
Jason, could we pull up a map of the city center district zones? That might be helpful just to see a map of this.
Okay, because this is a, okay. Yeah. No.
So I think what's been proposed, I think, is the language that's in there right now is that any structure within 75 feet of a residential zone could not exceed a height of 35 feet. That's one of the proposed amendments. Did I say that right, Jason? Okay.
So for example, let's
And
say
fine.
behind the post office, if you see on my map up here, post office area is over here, there is a budding the residential zone. So any redevelopment of some of that, the old office buildings next to the post office, if that were to redevelop, they would have to be a minimum of 75 feet off of that property. But they could build structures within that 75 feet as long as they're not higher than 35 feet.
But the
And a
35
minimum of 35 feet off the property.
right.
So there's a couple of different built-in, doesn't mean you can't build within that 75 feet. It's just limited to 35. And then outside of that area, it would be the 60-foot cap, which is what we're proposing here. So there.
And that's not, and Jason, that, I don't think anybody in here is against that whatsoever.
Can I ask him a question? Given that the council
I've been surprised by every vote you've taken.
approves or deny or pass whatever they want on Tuesday, can the moratorium be lifted right after that?
So the council's not proposing to do anything on Tuesday other than we're having this discussion. So there's nothing before them to make an actual vote as far as legislative action. That will come back at another time.
Okay.
So the moratorium puts that, pause button on any of these motions that we're proposing because we're not formally going before them. We're actually going to a discussion to make sure we get it right as we come back. So if they want to say, we want to have some more modifications, we would come back to the planning commission and go through that same process. If they want to rezone portions of the district out of the district, if they want to take the overall minimum or maximum heights within the districts, if they want to, change the ratio of retail versus commercial, they can modify that as well. So those things we want to talk about so that we can come back to the city council and not do multiple motions over the next 6 months. We'd rather do it, get it all lumped together, make the changes, have that discussion, whether we have neighborhood meetings, whatever we do. I don't want to, we're not going to rush this through so we can come back and go through the same process again. This is a holding so that we can have these standards in play. It's pending before the city council now. Anybody that comes in, let's say the moratorium ends, these would still be in play and the maximum height they could do is 60 feet and whatever else is in this. So as long as this ordinance is pending, these changes are what would be required. There's a moratorium on top of it. So, there's two different standards now that we're working with.
Yes.
The idea is to get these standards modified, but have them correct so that everybody's in favor of how we're going to move forward. The council then can make a one overall decision of multiple things, and then we can be hopefully done and be able to move forward with development within the districts.
So my guess, to make my question clear, I'm sorry about that. If once they're modified, once the ordinance is modified and they're clear, could the moratorium be lifted before
That-
6 months?
That would be our intent. Our hope is that we can get all this done, maybe less than 6 months, maybe 4 months, maybe 3. The council is satisfied with these changes. They would lift the moratorium and we would move forward. That's our intent. We'll find out on Tuesday, but that's what we're pushing is to get it, all the different things that we need to get modified. Let's get them in, get them through the process, have the discussion, and get it. So we don't, to be business friendly, obviously we don't want to keep it as long as the 6 months. That's just not practical in my opinion. We're going to work hard to get that done. Whether, the council is going to give us direction on Tuesday, what that means, and then we'll move forward to get it done. That's what we're planning on doing.
If we were to break these out, for instance, we have the setback issue. The 75 feet setback, 35 within that,
as explained. So if we did the setback issue as a separate with all of those associated changes that we have there, so setbacks would be one, height would be a second, and parking be a third, we could entertain all three of those as a separate.
I think that's actually a really good idea.
It would help the
'Cause that will help the council understand,
Yeah.
what you're concerned with and what you're not concerned with.
What do you think?
Well, just like Marissa said, I mean, we can send anything through. I mean,
Well, we
but
could
let's,
do it with the three. The setback issue is not an issue. Height, we'd like further clarification, I believe.
I
Now-
will acknowledge, at least I see things on a spectrum of don't government ever what to do, and yes, the government knows very well what I should do. Everyone's like somewhere on that spectrum. And for me, if we said, if we want height restrictions or setbacks, that would be saying to a degree, we want Orem City to tell us what to do, in which case I at least would feel more comfortable saying, yes, we want to keep those 3-story and 2-story height things, because to this degree, we feel like we want the government telling us what to do a little bit out there.
So, like, suggestion, just because it sounds like maybe there's more consensus on this setback from residential, maybe somebody would like to throw out a motion to send a positive recommendation, for example, on the setback modification in the zones in which it's been proposed. See what happens.
And see, and that makes it succinct in the zones in which it's been proposed.
Yeah.
Hazel?
I mean, is this different than the last time we sent it to the council? Because last time was definitive negative, and now that
On the setbacks?
no, on just
On the whole thing?
it was
On the height.
on the height.
Yeah.
It was height on parking. We had 2 items to worry about: the height and parking.
Yep.
Not setback, so we have one less item.
And if you remember, Hazel, the last we sent to the council, a height feet and parking increase from 1.75 to 2.0.
It was a negative recommendation for that.
No,
No.
for that, they sent it back.
For that, they sent it back. They sent it back to us saying, this is what we'd like you to do. And that's when we sent the negative recommendation, only for them to address the issue, because they have the power with the city council to go ahead and approve whatever it is that they wanted at that point. And that was the only reason we sent the negative recommendation, those of us that voted in the negative on that sent that.
Oh, am I ask a question? Is the 60 feet an issue in the zones? Is that one of the issues?
I don't see an issue, but of course some others do. But all I'm saying is, send it to the council the way it is. Let's see what they say.
I mean,
I would open the application for them.
Right. One option is to do a motion. For example, if you wanted the hub district, which is a high profile district, if that's something you don't like, the 60 feet, and you want to keep the unlimited or a 75 feet, I mean, you as a planning commission can make a motion to keep portions of what we're proposing and make a recommendation. It doesn't mean the council will follow that recommendation, but that is a way to.
So we could specifically say the North Village District and the Hub District have a height limitation of 60 feet.
Well, not North Village. That's not in the question, right?
That's out. Yeah, it's 48. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
So we're talking about the other 4 districts. Right now, we're recommending that all 4 have a height limit of 60 feet with the 10 extra feet for the non-habitable space. That's the proposal. Now, you could come back and say, yeah, we're comfortable with 3 of those districts being 60 feet. We don't think the the Hub district should be 60 feet, and therefore make a different motion. I mean, that's possible. The question is that the issue, or you just don't like 60 feet? I'm trying to understand what the issue is.
For me, they can go that's their maximum height.
Okay, I guess I wish if we discussed that a little bit further in our pre-meeting. Not right on the spot as we're making.
Well,
and none of you did. You actually did chomp at the last second, but
yeah.
So it's.
How high are the buildings in the hub zone already?
I'm sorry.
How high are the buildings in the hub zone already?
Hub zone, for example, the Midtown Village, the mall property, that building is about 80 feet, I believe, to the top. The office building on the corner is about 80 feet.
Okay, and then there's this apartments on the north.
So those are 48 on next to 8th East, and that goes up to, I believe, 60, 65 maybe. I'd have to double check, but it's 48 limit on the very front, and then it's able to taper in. The overall height limit in the mall property itself is 180 feet.
Yes.
So if they, like the structure that's under construction now with the 5 stories of parking and then 3 stories of office above that,
Yeah.
is approaching 90. I can't remember the height, but it's
Which is about the height of Midtown Village, I think, right?
Midtown is 111 to the top of
Are they 111
top
with
of
the mechanical?
top of the tower with the elevator in it. The majority of the 2 structures are about 96 feet to the peak.
Just to clarify, the mall is not in the hub district. It's a
Right.
Yeah.
That's its own zone, not
Yeah.
not under scrutiny right now, but
Hubs.
just as an example.
So it sounds like maybe height is the more complicated issue, but I suspect that maybe the
Parking,
planning commission could make a recommendation or get a majority vote on the setback issue, and maybe the parking standard as well. If somebody wanted to try that.
Well, it's a lot to read, so we ought to do a straw poll.
Well, how about this? Can I move that we make a negative recommendation on the parking requirement changes as recommended?
Yeah, you can make that motion.
Okay, I make that motion. I move that we do that then. I move that we make a negative recommendation to the city
I will
council
second that.
on the parking
So-
requirement changes as proposed.
If I can clarify, the 4 per thousand change and the 1.75 to 2, or are we just talking about the 4 per thousand? Because there's 2 different parking standards that were
They all go up, right? They're
Right.
all-
well, the 2.0, the 1.75 to 2.0 is per resident, and that seems to be a reasonable request. So we could separate that out, could we not? But the 4 per thousand,
Donna, you can say what you want.
I think
Yeah.
that parking should be a result of private market forces, so I would not vote for any parking increases. Also, with transit becoming more robust on State Street and more active transportation options, I think in the future we'll see that mode shift a little bit and we won't need as much perceived parking.
we could make several motions here.
So the 4 per thousand was for commercial,
Yes.
is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't really see very much potential for people parking in residential areas to go to a commercial property. I mean, it's the thing that keeps coming up over again is the spillover residential areas.
That's generally from high density.
That's not really a commercial issue, is it?
no. And again, this is a minimum standard. It doesn't mean the developer can't come in and want
Well-
additional parking, right? Up to the 125%.
Also, this
Which is 5?
ask for more a parking permit program
So by the access development, there's a neighborhood to the north that did receive a parking. So they would be signing it that no parking. Well, you have to have a parking permit. So if you live there, you're going to get passes to be able to park on the street. Students or those that don't have those passes cannot park on the street and will be ticketed if they do.
if there is a problem, there is the option to have a parking permit program or some.
Potentially, but typically it's around students, high school, university, those types of things. It doesn't really, it hasn't happened, I guess, next to a retail development. Doesn't mean that it couldn't, but they have not done that because I don't think there is a problem at this point with
Yeah.
with the retail development.
I actually think we have a motion and a second on the parking.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second on the parking, and it's a negative recommendation as we have discussed it tonight.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second, we'll take it to the council.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, motion carries.
So that deals with the parking.
That deals just with the,
We're making good progress here.
So
So
Ross and Hazen, right, voted nay, right?
Yeah. They were
both sets, and they can come back on it. I know there are some of us that the 1.75 to 2.0 is fine, but on other, it's not, so where we are. Further clarification. All right, next motion then is for the setback requirements as we have discussed them in the various zones tonight. And the setback requirements that we've discussed are the 75 feet from residential, that you can have nothing higher in that 75 feet than 35 feet. We've got that, and then after that, we're just going to do the setbacks. No height limitations at all. Just
No height limitation?
So that's a different
I think
motion.
you want to just focus on the setback issue first. I would suggest you just do somebody do a motion on just that setback issue,
Yeah,
positive or negative.
Goes
okay.
inside the
Okay.
setback.
I think they should be able to ask and say what they want since we reopened everything for discussion.
No, not necessarily. We had the public hearing that they could have come up, but that's my call, Hazen.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Now-
can I put it?
Now-
Do I have a voice in this committee to make an input?
As the chair, I make the call on opening and closing according to that. But I'm asking, who would like to reopen a public hearing just for public comments on this?
I'd like to get the public's input.
You don't care?
Yeah, I think we ought to listen to people.
All right, we're going to open it again. Please, come on up, come here. No, not there. You come to the podium, state your name and your address, please.
Just for everybody's information, this is a public meeting and we need your comments on the record, so we need you to speak into the microphone.
Yeah.
Thank you for, just clarification. I'm John Healy. We live at 274 East, 400 South.
Excellent.
Not full-time, but we're there 4 or 5 days a week anyway. But my question is, when you say residential, first it says residential zone, which is, I guess, outside of the zone, that were the district zones, but then you talk like residential within the zone. We live within one of the zones. Does that pertain, there's gonna be a setback from our house to a developed property?
4 South, 275 East.
Pardon me? So it would include property, all those that were within there, because there's quite a few. Yes, and there's quite a few residents just north of us within the zone, the same thing. So
Yep. But it would be those that abut.
Anybody north, let me go to your, just,
Jason, that one's in place already, correct?
Yeah.
that was in place. So
well, my main question is, even though we're residential inside the zone, the setback still pertains.
So there's the map. This is 4 South.
Yes,
You live somewhere along here.
yes.
So this zone is a residential B zone within the district, would require that setback. Yes.
Okay, that clarifies.
So anything north of that is not in the district and but that street in the Res B, which is this, it's hard to see on this, but that,
That helps, thank you.
So you're covered.
Mr.
Yeah. If this is another comment, can you come forth, please? Thanks. Name, please. Your name?
Joan Healy.
Oh, okay.
And so when you say it's a setback, you said it started on the opposite side of the street?
so in this instance, because you're the Res B, it would start from where that residential B property line is, which would be south of your property.
So it wouldn't start on the other side of
It would not start on the other side. It would start on the back side of your home,
Oh, the back side.
Yes.
75 feet.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just for the record, the city staff have interpreted what is a residential zone and well, never mind, forget I said that. I'm thinking a different context, not this one, so I
thought I heard a voice.
But I think we've answered the public's question on that.
Yeah. So,
Gandhi. I live at 1669 North, 400 West in Orem, near the North Village District. First of all, just to make sure I understand, you guys aren't paid city employees. You're all volunteers in your position.
Yeah, we are.
So thank you for your service. I wanted to add that. When the master plan was proposed, my understanding was the pictures, the photos, the presentation, it was all beautiful. It had like some commercial space, and it had a couple floors of residential. It wasn't a proposal to spread high-density housing all over Orem. Well, not all over, but down the main district. Is that a correct statement? Is that a correct assumption of what I saw? My understanding, it wasn't 6, 7-story buildings along State Street. It was these smaller mixed-use.
There were some of those that it was, that some of the renderings did show higher, but they were all renderings.
Well, that's true, because they hadn't built anything yet.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I totally agree with you on that. So height restrictions could help protect Orem.
How so?
A ton of high density right along State Street where we have UTA that goes up and down. We're 5, 10 years out from any kind of mass transit or UVX type of transportation. I think the parking issues are important. Living near the North Village District, I don't want cars parking in front of my house. I have family that come over and visit. I don't want parking passes and tickets. Does the city have enough police officers to go manage those areas and ticket those vehicles that are parked where they shouldn't be parked? Yeah, are there plans to add officers to enforce those types of policies?
I can answer that. They're actually in process right now of creating a parking enforcement part of the force that'll be not manned by certified officers, but by parking enforcement officers, so civilian officers.
Okay, so it'd be like, and I don't mean anything by that, is that part of the volunteer? Because I know there are some.
No, it'll be, they'll be financed, have their own budget, and they're hiring those staff here shortly.
Okay.
It's a new program that'll be rolled out so that our other officers are responding to other calls.
Okay. I still don't think that's the best solution, but I don't know that we can necessarily lean on that. They would have to be out patrolling all the time. I don't know how feasible that really is. I just want to state that I am highly in favor of height restrictions. I don't think we should be going all the way to the sky unlimited along State Street. Did you have something, Jason?
Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I just want to, Jason, please let me know if I'm clear on that, because you've been involved heavily in this. At the beginning, to answer your question about the master plan, at the beginning of the master plan, when the city council was shuttled to Oregon to look at the city that we wanted to pretty much look like it, all they've seen there was a 3-story over commercial.
No, that is not correct.
Nope. So
That
the
is not
information that
correct.
was said on.
So part of the proposal that they did see was a 6 to 7 story over commercial.
So in the council records, when they said what they've seen was 3.
That is true. They did see that, but they also saw higher structures as well.
Okay. Well, from speaking to the council member that have been there personally, I asked them about what they've seen and if it applies to the current master plan. And the feedback I received was it was supposed to be 3 over 1. That's what I talked to them. But if
No.
you say it's not true, then
Well, I'm not going to argue about what he said or, I said.
No, that's fine.
The point is that we both were there at the same project, and there were multiple, from single-family heights all the way up to, 7, 8 stories. So that was all part of the tour, all part of the same project.
What's the name of that city in Oregon?
Orenco Station.
Orenco?
It's in Hillsboro, Oregon.
Hillsboro, Oregon, yeah.
I wasn't on that tour. I wasn't in this position at that time. Did they not also attend other, was it in California development as well?
I didn't go to that.
Sugar House?
Sugar House we did. Portland obviously is a different dynamic, but Portland also we visited as well.
So would you guys just make that a statement to the council? So because once they keep repeating that, I'd like for one of you to tell them that's what you've seen.
Oh, I have done that. Yeah. So, but I can repeat that.
Here's a practical question. The zones, these districts aren't enormous. So, and there's a setback requirement connected to height, right? So what's the biggest a building could be? If it's right in the middle of a district?
There's a lot of factors that go in with that, whether you have, parking structures, whether you have, types of materials, type of construction. You go over a certain height, 5-story height, there's a different type of construction, which is typically steel, which is not going to be. So basically all those different factors built in gradually will, or by itself will limit the height. Now, granted, there could be a developer that comes in that, you know, can master all the different things and buy up the whole block and, you know, have a ginormous building. That's possible. Practically, that's probably not gonna happen.
So 12-story building,
That's
probably
theoretically, if you leave the non, then yeah, theoretically.
right in the middle, you could have a 12-story building
Good.
Could.
In the middle.
I guess
in the middle of a district, so that it's
Yeah,
got
like right here.
lots of setback.
It would have to be on the, you know, like one of these corners here where the
A setback.
residential is 600 feet away or whatever, you know.
So my statement as a resident was my understanding the master plan wasn't high density. It was 2 or 3 floors on top of commercial. I have concerns as to whether all of the commercial, if that's what's required all along State Street, will it all actually be used? And what happens to other business owners that can't remodel or do anything unless they build apartments and completely reconstruct? That's a concern.
No, they can remodel
Up to 15%.
without having to come under
The State Street Master Plan does not require high-density housing.
It does not.
That they allow that as an option, but a developer could come in and put 100% office, 100% retail, or a combination of office retail. There is no district that requires residential.
It does not require, but I'm
No.
gonna clarify something. That was a personal experience. The 15% you're talking about is 15% of the footprint of the business. If they need to add or remove 15% of their current footprint, then they have to bring their entire property up to code. What the code means, they have to demolish it, bring it up to State Street, and put it to the current required building heights and everything. Personally, I sold a property on State Street, 744 North State Street, to a car dealer. And 3 months into it, he sold it and went to American Fork because he wanted to add a small office that was more than 15%, and he thought it was counterproductive to the economic status of the current loan he took and the new loan he has to take. So I do have a problem with that 15% you're talking about.
And
Big
that's
problem.
what I'm referring to.
Yeah, so that's how I want to clarify it. I have a huge problem because
Is that part of the master plan, or is
it is part of the city code, but even though it does not require high density, my second building that I sold also because it was included on one of the district is because if I wanted to sell it to somebody else, if I wanted to renovate, add anything, my only option, if I either change my footprint or pretty much sell it to a developer at a lesser money-wise, and this is what Jason helped me with, changing the zoning from legal non-conforming to legal conforming, and he helped tremendously, not just me and every single business owner, because legal non-conforming could not get loans or refinance from banks, and we had to go through the process to prove that, and that's when the city realized, oh gosh, we can't do that. But even then, my $2 million property would only be worth $750 if that went through. So they understood that and they fixed it. So I'm saying here, yes, that exists, but the city is also willing to modify and change things, and I think this is one of the things we should tackle so business owners have the freedom to add a little garage if it's more than 15% of their property. Otherwise, the property is deemed useless. So I'm sure the city will touch on that, but that's not what we're...
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about tonight. That is a State Street standard, not a district standard, so.
It's for the whole State Street.
Well, as a resident, height restrictions are important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Visnow, 399 West, 1560 North. I hope all of you received my email that I had sent. I know Mickey and Marissa, you said you've seen it and read it and fully understood it because there's a lot in there. I know it's very wordy. Thank you for having it. I want you just to recognize that these changes are to benefit and protect neighborhoods and residents. It's not to hurt developers in any way. If you think about like State Street and Center, there are a lot of businesses right there, and what they're asking to do is not necessarily hurting like those buildings. It's protecting the ones that are on the fringes where there's people that live. So the parking requirement, like was brought up, the residential 1.75 is really hard when you have, I know, but to increase it to 2, by not giving a recommendation, you're almost saying that the 1.75 is what you prefer. And I believe that's really inappropriate in a lot of high density, mid density. I've lived in mid density and it doesn't work anything less than 2. As far as the setbacks go, what we talked about in the work meeting, that only applies to those very specific spots where there are residential abutting, other, commercial mixed use areas. So I believe that is a very reasonable request, as also the height. because that is a very specific targeted spots where there are residential, and that doesn't occur in a lot of spots around those. So by giving a negative recommendation, you're not killing stuff, you're helping people. I don't want it to look like it's really a restriction, because it's not restricting a whole lot of places around places like the Hub and the Canyon Crossing, and those other ones that have a lot of commercial already. It's really just protecting the ones that are there and that are residents. And so it's really disconcerting, and I know you feel maybe powerless a little bit, that the city council can just do whatever they want afterwards, but I really feel like your recommendation is valuable, and if you could give a positive recommendation on something that shows that you are helping to protect the neighborhoods just a little bit, it would be great. So, did you have any questions, Mickey?
No, we've given a lot of positive recommendations for changes in the past, and we do, at least many of us here on the commission do agree with the 2.0.
Well, when I raised my hand, I was going to ask you, can you clarify what it is you don't like about this that is creating the negative recommendation? And you're starting to discuss that, and I'm grateful for the discussion moving forward. But I just want to point out that there's a lot of positive with this, and I think you're tending to look at maybe some of the negative, thinking it's really restrictive, when there are very few areas that would be very restricted by these changes, because there aren't as many residential areas around a lot of these districts as there is such in the arts.
Yep, the parking is a package deal.
I know the parking is tricky, and I know there's a balance between commercial, residential, and too much parking lots. And I've walked many streets helping with campaigns this last several. I'll tell you, anytime I pass anything that has any density in it, there's parking. I can just see it a mile away. I'm like, oh, there must be an apartment down there. Sure enough, it just happens, and I know that's just the thing. But anyway, I just appreciate the conversation moving forward and letting us have another public hearing portion, because there were things that came up in the discussion that I hope to clarify a little bit, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks for your email and the research that you did on that, and the photos that you put in it. That was well done, so thank you.
But there were no kitties, so thank you. You would have got a positive had you. No, I'm just kidding. All right, thank you. Then we'll go ahead and this time close it, come back. We've made one motion, close the public hearing portion of this. We have made one motion. We could do.
I have to, we did finish one. Is there one still pending?
Well, we can just have that positive recommendation, and the others are come back.
Well, I think you should try and see if you can get a majority vote on all the issues, either
the setback and the height.
Setback.
All right, setbacks. Let's. I'll go ahead and make the motion. See if I can somehow articulate this. I move that the Planning Commission send a positive recommendation to the City Council concerning the setbacks that we have discussed on these particular areas of the State Street Master Plan. Setbacks only.
Second.
We have a second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay. So we have a positive recommendation on the setback.
Now the height would be the last one.
The height.
I will make a negative recommendation on the height requirements as they have been listed and discussed today.
I'll second that. Haysom?
Nay. Aye.
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 Okay, before I vote, I want on the record why I'm going to vote nay. I don't think all the districts are the same. And whereas in the Arts District, I think a height requirement would make sense. I don't think it makes sense in the Hub. But I vote nay, because that's the way the motion is stated.
I think the isn't.
Oh, the arts, well.
The height is,
yeah, it is. The height.
The height.
The height, yeah, we're just saying on the height restrictions, we are sending a negative recommendation as it has been listed in here because it's just a blanket deal. So, okay, you're a nay?
Nay.
Aye.
All right, so that's 4-2. That particular passes also.
Okay.
Pardon?
No, it's 4-2.
No. Thanks, 4-2.
Okay.
So And in that, we'd like them to come back with, separate.
Yeah, more detail.
Separate it up, because there are some places where the height restriction makes absolute sense, a certain height restriction. There are other places where a little bit higher height restriction will make greater sense. And I'm not saying 12 stories, Ross. Although I love watching red iron go up. I mean, I've never done it, but I just like, oh, that's nice. Not going to happen. All right. We have, next item on the agenda is minutes. Everybody have a chance to peruse those? Do we see any glaring modifications that need to be made? Then I'll make the motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Second by Barry.
Aye.
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 All right. Mr. Clark?
Nothing to add. I think we covered it in the work session on the upcoming conference. So just a reminder, please let us know if you're interested and we'll get you signed up.
Thank you. Then motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second by Haysom.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
So can I ask a question? Who voted no on the setback issue? Okay, thank you.
Remember, she's a volunteer. No, I just kidding.